A chance to send the Thunder home.
Damian Lillard is about to hit one of the most monumental shots in postseason history. A moment that no one should take for granted, because this moment will not only define his legacy moving forward, but would also help shape Russell Westbrook's legacy and force Oklahoma City as a franchise to look themselves in the mirror and make some tough decisions moving forward. This is a conflict that has been brewing for the past handful of seasons, and in this year in particular, it escalated to a point that made this series an instant classic. And if you don't believe me, let's take a moment, go back, contextualize everything that has transpired over the past handful of years so you can thoroughly understand why this series, this game, and this moment in particular will go down as one of the most iconic and monumental moments in NBA history. But first, let me give a huge shout out to today's sponsors, and they are FanDuel. FanDuel is a platform that allows its users to interact with one another and enjoy everything fantasy without being tied down to a league like other platforms do. The sign up is extremely easy and convenient. All you have to do is provide an email address, a password, make a username, then select the league that you want to interact in, and that's it. From there, you go to the lobby and pick the pool that fits your needs and desires. Once you select the pool that you want, FanDuel is going to give you a salary cap that you have to abide by to fill out your roster. And beside each player, there is an understanding of how much they cost so you don't go over your salary cap. And for the people out there who are a bit skeptical of fantasy like I was and concerned about how much money you have to put into each pool, don't worry, because FanDuel has multiple pools out there that best suits your needs. Everything from $10 and up pools to a dollar pool, sometimes even 25 cents pool, and even free pools as well that you can participate in to make sure that you can win big with FanDuel. But if that doesn't intrigue you enough, FanDuel is actually giving me a promotion code that you all can utilize to get $5 for free on your first deposit. All you have to do when you're signing up, they give you an option to put in a promo code, and my promo code is LOW. Or to make it even easier for you, you can click the link in the description as well. So go to FanDuel.com or download the app, sign up, use my promo code, or even easier, just click the link in the description, make your lineup, and win big with FanDuel. And again, huge shout out to FanDuel for sponsoring this video. So first, let's talk about the Portland Trail Blazers. Portland is an organization that just a few years ago was forced to give the keys to the franchise to Damian Lillard once their star forward, LaMarcus Aldridge, decided to do something else with his career that did not include the franchise. A necessary decision, but one that many people question, especially because Dame had only been in the NBA for 3 years. The entire team was going to change their identity because it was best suited for LaMarcus, not Dame, and because of the restructuring of the roster, it forced second-year bench guard CJ McCollum into the starting lineup, which does allow many people to doubt what this team potentially could become if you have Dame and CJ leading the charge. So much so that many people, even before this season began, doubted that the Portland Trail Blazers would even be a playoff team. Now, to the credit of Dame, CJ, and the rest of the Portland Trail Blazers, this is a team that not only has been a consistent playoff participant since LaMarcus Aldridge has left, but also more times than not finds themselves at the top of the conference. And because of the Portland Trail Blazers overcoming the doubt that constantly surrounds them, it's really given the best depiction of this organization and roster as a whole, as the underdogs, a team that no one credits properly, led by a star that many people deem as the most underrated player in the NBA. Or at least that's what many people were saying up until last year, as the Pelicans were able to sweep the Trail Blazers in the first round behind a really bad performance from Damian Lillard. So bad that unfortunately it will play a part in how people will define Dame's legacy. And due to the poor performance in the early exit, it gave some validation to the critics and the doubters for this Portland Trail Blazers team and allowed the idea of Dame and CJ being broken up to resurface again. So the Trail Blazers were on a mission this year. If Portland didn't find themselves with a favorable seeding or getting knocked out in the first round again, more than likely there were going to be some pretty significant and drastic decisions that were going to be made with his roster. And most noticeably, Dame and CJ more than likely were not going to be able to call each other teammates once this year was over. And if all of that wasn't enough, their third scoring option in Jusuf Nurkic, towards the end of the regular season, suffered an injury that forced him to miss the remainder of the year. including the playoffs. But then on the other hand, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC, very similar to Portland and Dame, found themselves giving the keys to the franchise to their young guard in Russell Westbrook after their star forward in Kevin Durant took his talents to another organization. But unlike Dame, there really weren't that many doubts of Russell Westbrook leading a franchise. Actually, many people felt like the best way to utilize Russ was to make him the first option, and there were even people who were predicting that Russ was going to be able to average a triple-double, which he did, as well as being named league MVP and led the Oklahoma City Thunder to a playoff berth. But by the end of the season, after getting knocked out in the first round by the Houston Rockets, there were some concerns that were raised by some of Russell Westbrook's critics, including myself, that unfortunately went on deaf ears. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, it's really hard to convince people that a player who just got done averaging a triple-double may not be as great as many people want you to believe. Especially when many people just looked at that 2017 season as a transitional phase when it comes to the talent on the roster for the Oklahoma City Thunder, which, looking back at it, may have been true, as by the beginning of the next season, OKC was able to acquire Paul George and Carmelo Anthony and form a team that had some pretty high expectations. And despite Russell Westbrook concluding his second season while averaging a triple-double, the Thunder finished the 2017-2018 year as a disappointment. They were unable to eclipse 50 wins. They were bounced out in the first round by a Utah Jazz team that was led by rookie and Donovan Mitchell, and the trio that was supposed to set the table for this organization, Westbrook, Melo, and George, were not only underwhelming during the regular season, but also during the playoffs as well. Which meant, in a very similar fashion to Portland, OKC this year was on the path of redemption, which thus leads us to this year. Portland finished the year off with 50 wins, yet again giving them a top seed in the Western Conference, and Damian Lillard had another great regular season campaign to add to his career. CJ McCollum continued to progress, and the bench was a bit better than I think many people anticipated. And then you have OKC, who started off the season really strong, one of the top tier defenses in the NBA, and Paul George is playing like an MVP candidate. And Russell Westbrook had another season in which he was able to average a triple-double. But post All-Star break, the Oklahoma City Thunder started to slide in the standings and found themselves with a lower seeding in the playoff race. And due to the Thunder finishing another season in which they could not eclipse 50 wins, the whispers of criticism of Russell Westbrook's play that was heard back in 2017, yeah, they started to become a little bit louder. And with Russell Westbrook's impact and productivity in question, Westbrook's placement in the hierarchy of NBA stardom started to slide a little bit, which added another layer to this year's playoff series. In one corner, you have Damian Lillard, a player who has been trying for the past 2 to 3 years to close a gap between him and a lot of his peers, but is always doubted in the process. And in the other corner, you have Russell Westbrook, a player who's been given the benefit of the doubt, but is slowly losing his placement in the race amongst top guards with Curry and Harden, which meant that this season the gap between Harden and Westbrook continued to expand, while the gap between Westbrook and Dame started to close, something that I would argue Westbrook is fully aware of. Which is why over the past 2 to 3 years, Westbrook has almost went out of his way to try to slight Dame, regardless if it's on or off the court.
A reason why people boo Russell Westbrook when he comes to...
Not in your sequence, Smitty. It won't be an under the rim, Smitty.
Got guys, complaining about getting snubbed until they get in. Got guys that, just talking about all the time, but the guys that deserve it should be in. It's not.
What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I respect Russ a lot. So it was kind of disappointing to see him say that because he's played against me.
Which was very risky for Russell Westbrook, because it's not like Dame is a small forward who plays in the Eastern Conference. No, Dame plays the same position, in the same conference, and in the same division, so playing in a meaningful playoff series was inevitable, and it just so happened to occur during a point in both players' careers where the outcome was going to be legacy altering. Which brings us to this year's playoffs, in which we have a Portland Trailblazers team that is trying to climb the ladder of respect but continues to be doubted, versus an Oklahoma City Thunder team led by Russell Westbrook, that finds themselves descending in the ranking of NBA excellence, but yet is still given the benefit of the doubt to win this series. And what made this series even more interesting is that the sentiment really and truly didn't change between these two teams, even when the Portland Trail Blazers took a 2-0 lead behind two dominant performances from both Dame and CJ, while on the other hand you had Russell Westbrook, who struggled significantly in Game 2, and Paul George was hampered with a shoulder injury. In Game 3 though, things changed a bit as OKC went back home and won their first game in the series behind arguably the best postseason performance that we've seen from Russell Westbrook in the last 4 to 5 years. But the bigger story in that game were the theatrics committed by the Thunder that just added to the drama. Westbrook yelling after every three-pointer he made, Dennis Schroeder mocking Damian Lillard with his celebration, and Paul George doing a reverse dunk as time expired, even though he didn't have a good game whatsoever. Which thus brings us to Game 4 as Portland steals a game while they're on the road, and even though Dame and CJ played yet again another great game and Portland went up 3-1 in the series, the story wasn't how great Portland was, the story was how bad OKC was. Mainstream media, analysts, beat writers, and even fans, casual and extreme alike, were going in on Westbrook. The criticism that was ignored 2 to 3 years ago is now at an all-time high. Now this is the part of the story where you would say, well, that's good because we need to start holding Westbrook accountable. But I'm going to make an argument that everyone was only focused on one side. No one was talking about the Blazers and how great they've been playing so far in this series, because this year was just as important to them and their story as it was to OKC. But all of that would change by the end of Game 5. Because the only way that Portland would receive the credit that they rightfully deserve, as well as Dame's name being thrown into the conversation as one of the best players in the NBA, even if it meant to supersede Westbrook, the Trailblazers would have to go out in a bang and give everyone a moment that they will never forget. Which thus brings us back to this moment. In one shot, not only are the Portland Trailblazers going to win the game and the series, but more importantly, all of the doubt that had been placed on Portland and Damian Lillard will be stripped away, while also forcing people to recognize them and their greatness, while finally giving them the respect that they rightfully earn, as Damian Lillard is about to give all of us a moment that will immortalize him in NBA history. And all of that doubt that has been stripped from Portland and Dame will now be placed on OKC and Russell Westbrook, and possibly Westbrook's legacy as being a triple-double machine will be overshadowed by his postseason failures, and that sentiment will only be punctuated with this shot.
Lillard, long-range three, and it's good! At the buzzer, Damian Lillard!
With all that being said, people, please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. Again, shout out to FanDuel for sponsoring this video. Make sure you click the link in the description and hit promo code LOW to get your free $5. And until next time, I will see you all later. Peace.